being hysterical and all the rest of it. And you know, I genuinely have not come across a vapor trying to make any sort of capital out of that. So anyway, let's move on. I want to look at something that I noticed this afternoon actually, and this show on the YouTube description is entitled "Something's Rotten in the Kingdom of Denmark." So copyright William Shakespeare, I know, but it seems appropriate. I only became aware of the story sort of late this afternoon. I spotted something on UK Vapors and also on Twitter. Somebody sort of flagged a link to it. And it concerns Denmark, an EU member state, who seem to be the first to be now starting to sort out how they intend to implement the changes to the TPD, the EU Tobacco Products Directive. Anybody that hasn't been living under a rock will know that there are a series of rules which member states are required to implement by 2016. A lot of the TPD, the way it is currently written, is open to interpretation, and a lot of it seems to be almost impossible to accommodate whilst preserving vaping as we know it. This is a big deal. So we've been waiting to see what the first ideas of the member state governments would be on how they're going to implement this. So this is a big deal. So before I actually flash up this document that has been published on the internet, I just want to give thanks to DADAFO, which obviously isn't an acronym for an English organisation, but it translates to the Danish Vapors Association, who have been kind enough to translate and summarise what's going on in a nice English language document, which I shall now get up on the screen. Let's go for the right camera shots. That's not the right camera shot. That's the right camera shot. Sorry, I was messing around with cameras earlier and I can't find anything. Yeah, so this is a... the title says it all. It's been published by the Danish Vapors Association, DADAFO, and it's entitled A Short Description of the Danish Law Proposal Regarding Implementation of the TPD. And I'm going to read it because I'm going to read it in full, because I think it's important. I'll pop the link here into our chat room simply because I forgot to prime the backroom team to do it for me, and I do know that we're having problems with chat, but we'll make sure that this link is available if you haven't seen it already, that is. But it's in the chat room for now. I'll read it in full. It says, Denmark has just started a hearing on a new law proposal about implementing the TPD in about as draconian a way as possible. Hearing runs until the 20th of March, so that's, 3 weeks away. And then there will be 3 rounds of negotiations amongst politicians, and it's supposed to be implemented in November. So far, it seems as if there's a general goodwill towards the proposal, probably because of the 18-year rule alone. The general misconception is that it's a good law because it will make nicotine-containing products legal in Denmark as tobacco products, as opposed to the current situation where nicotine-containing liquids are illegal but sold anyways. Some of the proposals. No sales to individuals below the age of 18. Okay, so I'll just interject there. We know that the UK government is making its own move on that, so we're likely to see that in the UK, and I dare say in all of the EU member states anyway. Second one, e-cigarettes with and without nicotine will be covered under the non-smoking laws equivalent to smoking. Now, he says in smoke-free laws in Denmark means no smoking in bars except very small facilities, work facilities, offices, public offices, taxis, schools, clubs, private or public, work vehicles that are used by more than one person, ships and offshore platforms, basically everywhere that is indoors with the exception of private homes and smoking rooms or cabinets. Outside smoking is still legal, except for areas surrounding education environments such as schools, but can be changed by local rules, guidelines. The Danish smoke-free law is more or less a direct implementation of the FCTC recommendations, FCTC being the Framework Convention on Tobacco. No, I've got that right. The Framework Convention on Tobacco Control. It's a WHO initiative. Just comment on that. Looks as though Denmark's smoke-free laws are not entirely dissimilar to the UK and certainly Germany and Ireland and a few other places I know. We know that they're talking about sort of banning smoking in public parks where kids would play and schools and everything. So it's quite similar there. The significant thing for me there is that because they're going to be classified as a tobacco product, now the smoking ban now applies to vaping in Denmark if this proposal is accepted. On to the next one. All private and public companies are required to establish a written smoking and now vaping policy that at the very least specifies where and when smoking and vaping is allowed, as well as the consequences of not following the policy. He says, please note that companies are not allowed to circumvent the smoke-free laws in these policies. They can only make stricter interpretations, such as disallowing smoking on company grounds, which is not uncommon. For instance, it's not allowed to smoke currently in most amusement parks, except in designated areas, and many government employees have been banned from smoking anywhere, including in private areas or outside between workplaces during work hours. So again, that sounds like pretty similar to what we've got here in the UK, doesn't it? And the fourth point is a complete ban on advertising, sponsoring and name brand usage outside of shops. With non-specialised shops, the products must be put out of view of the customers and only available on demand. Currently here, the ASA are saying, subject to certain limitations, that e-cigarettes can be advertised, and they are being advertised. But the TPD, as it's written, says that won't be allowed to happen. Denmark have obviously decided just to go with it. Next point, rules that are required for all hardware or parts of hardware that can be used to vaporise liquid that might contain nicotine. That's quite a telling phrase, isn't it? That might contain nicotine. No tanks greater than 2 mil. Those tanks have to be completely leak-free. Filling mechanism that ensures that leaks cannot occur, and child-safe tanks and e-cigs. The comment is, as far as we can tell, this would entail that almost 100% of all vaping equipment currently on the market becomes illegal. The interpretation of the TPD that non-liquid filled tanks aren't covered is thus ignored, and tanks will fall under the law no matter if they are sold with or without liquid. Notice the might part, which means that it does not matter if you sell for nicotine-based usage. I'm just noticing that you perhaps can't see some of that, so I'll scroll the page up. But this is basically our worst fear, wasn't it? That the member states would just basically read the TPD as it stands. We often maintain that it's impossible to come up with a totally leak-free device. I think that certain member states aren't going to care about that. They're going to say, that's fine, you can't sell them then. It is a de facto ban. Regardless of what people might tell you, if this gets adopted in Denmark, there are going to be no more tanks, are there? Because where is it going to be, how's this leak-free device going to be actually, who's got one, We know the answer to that, don't we? E-liquid can only be sold in 10 ml refill containers and bottles, or 2 ml pre-filled containers and cartomizers. All products and parts of products must be registered at the relevant government body, and I'm not going to attempt to pronounce that Danish word there, for fear of offending any Danish friends. It says failure to do so will result in stiff fines of 50,000 Danish kroner mentioned, but proposed to be based on revenue, so that suggests to me it might be bigger. And they'll automatically be the toughest fines, since this is a product that could put children in danger under the definition of the law. All products individually must be registered 6 months before they are sold. Registration starts in November, when the laws go into effect. There is no grandfathering for existing products. Right, so as is pointed out here, so as the law stands, all e-cig hardware will be illegal for 6 months after the law goes into effect, since no products are registered and registration must be 6 months before sale. They've really thought this through, haven't they? And what worries me is maybe they have really thought this through. If a company outside Denmark wants to sell to a customer in Denmark, then they must go through the same registration process, i.e. there is a wall in import-export. Otherwise sales will be illegal and prosecuted under the TPD. This is the cross-border sales references in the TPD. Product registration is for each sub-part sold and will cost 30,000 kroner. That's estimated here at about 4,000 euros for each sub-part sold. Okay, that's 4,000 euros per product for the first year, and then 10,000 kroner or 1,300 euros for each subsequent year it is marketed. So they're going to pay an ongoing sort of licensing fee for every product that they sell. Products will need to be re-registered if major changes are done. For e-liquids, this could be changing from one producer of aniseed aroma to another. Any kind of innovation on the parts used for vaping, be it equipment or liquids, will be stifled, and any incentive for product development will be stopped effectively. It says for e-liquids, this means that each variant will have to be registered individually. If you have a 60-40 PG-VG, a 40-60 and 100% VG variant, then each of those three juices would have to be registered, as well as for each nicotine variant and for each flavour variant. E-liquid producers must register all ingredients, a toxicology report and an emissions report for each and every variant. Rules describing what the reports must contain will not be available to producers before the end of 2015. We'll make sure that that link is around the place so you can read that for yourself and see the source of the information. I would just want to say a huge thank you to Kim and Peter, who are the people credited at the bottom, for putting that document together. I guess this is really this is the worst case scenario. This is what we worried about, and this is what Linda McAvan said wouldn't happen. You know, we've got in that document there, if those proposals are basically, they've just taken the TPD and thought, yeah, that's what we're going to do. Okay, if that goes through without being watered down at all, there are several reasons in there which states that the common, the most popular e-cig products will not be available after November in Denmark. There will be a lot of governments watching to see what Denmark do, as they appear to be going first, how they get on, what the political connotations of it are, and dare I say, you know, get an idea of what they can get away with. If this were introduced, any country that this is introduced in is effectively a ban on vaping as we know it today. It does occur to me that there is one product on the market which might get away with all of this stuff, and it's made by a company with all those stipulations, 2 ml, you know, pretty much leak free, it's not refillable, and it's marketed by a company who really aren't going to have a problem with those registration fees. We're talking about BAT and their vape product. If that goes through as it's written there, as those proposals are written, then that's pretty much all that will be left legally, is the vape. And even that is a bit dubious, but I've got a funny feeling they'll buy their way through it. The registration fees mentioned there, they don't seem like huge sums of money until you consider that even a small brick and mortar shop, right, has to stock a wide range of nicotine strengths, flavours, blends of PG, VG, PEG, whatever people want to use. That it would cost them far more than they can make in profit. Even if the some organisations are big enough and have the clout and have enough turnover to actually to survive this, you can see the price of your e-liquid going through the roof, can't you? China will continue to innovate and make stuff, and the likelihood is we'll be able to get hold of it, but it'll be illegal, and that's not right. So anybody that had forgotten about the TPD, anybody that's thinking, it's not going to be as bad as all that, acquaint yourself with that document and seriously ask yourself what you're basing your hopes on. We need to keep making noise. We need to be in continual touch with our politicians, our MEPs and our MPs, and we need to make it very clear to them that we do not accept that, and if they try that, then they're going to meet resistance. And I just want to send my best wishes to the vapors in Denmark. I hope you can make enough noise. I hope you can get some resistance together, and I hope that you can shoot those proposals down. So best of luck from us. We're going to take another break now. I'll be back in a couple of minutes.